All right, guys, we're here for another Rambler video, and I got the Mr. Cool Lee Zavitz, probably the fucking coolest name on YouTube. You sound like a rock star. But Lee and I, both of our channels are like known for some Fuji stuff. Lee's an insanely good photographer. I feel like there's no shade on anybody, but you know, I feel like in our realm where we cover technical stuff, but also do photography, there's kind of few who actually do pro level fashion type work. So Lee's one of those guys, and he can rock any camera, like any Fuji camera, any like professional, like whatever camera it is. I'm kind of over all these modern cameras. Throughout the past few years, anytime I pick up like any of my Sony cameras or like a Canon, whatever it is, it feels like work, and I kind of get the ick. Now that we're starting to get a little bit more vintage bodies, I feel like camera bodies are becoming the new film stock. Like all the technology is kind of evening out. Like everybody has fucking great cameras now. Yeah. But now I find myself going towards other cameras that may not have as like great as technical on paper quality, but the bodies kind of like get me to use it and motivate me to shoot. And it kind of makes it fun again. It makes me want to be a photographer again. Right. So I just want to get Lee's thoughts on all this and where he thinks all this might be leading.
Yeah, it's 100%. I'm kind of in the same place as you. Like when I pick up a Sony camera, I'm not inspired to shoot with it. It gets the job done. And I think that that's kind of why Sony's my main system right now that I shoot with for work and like things where I know, you know, it's just going to be reliable. It's predictable. It's your workhorse camera. But if I like want to go out and shoot like for fun, I'd rather pick up a Fuji or pick up something else. I don't have the Nikon ZF, but like that would be another inspiring camera. I also get why you're shooting with film a lot more now because it's more about that experience. It may not be as reliable. You might miss the shot. You might not get focused, but you're not going to use it for like super critical stuff, right?
Anytime, like obviously for any like pro jobs, like my Sony A7R5 is like my go-to. But outside of those pro jobs, like I'm taking less of those jobs on because I want to do more YouTube and I'm like having a blast doing this. I find myself just neglecting the A7R5 to the point where it's like, maybe I should sell it and just rent it anytime a job comes up now that I actually want to take. But like you said, the Nikon ZF, it's making me want to start doing like test shoots and fashion shoots again, which I kind of got burnt out because it's just like there was no inspiration behind it. Obviously, we had the Fujifilm X100VI, which I'm going to sell this guy because this kind of just took over. And now I also have the Leica M11 and these two cameras, it's weird because it's like they get me to start shooting again. They get me excited to do photography. And then they get me back into film once again, where it's like the past 15 years I've dabbled in and out of film. And these cameras always get me to go back to them. So, and like all these, the color science and the digital sensors, they all look the same. Like go look at Lee's work, guys. I'll put his Instagram down in the description. Like you can't tell which camera's which because Lee just has a style and he's just good. Like he'll make any freaking camera look good. So, and that's kind of what being a professional is. That's like what experience is.
The color science argument, right?
Yeah.
It's like, it almost doesn't exist if you're shooting raw. You're going to be able to make any camera look like any camera. I mean, once you've been doing it for long enough, because you know what you want to see in the skin tones and the highlights and everything. They're all basically the same. I'd say, I guess if you're shooting JPEG, then there's going to be an obvious difference in the color science, but I don't know how many people are 100% always shooting JPEG. I mean, you see it in the comments. You see people that, I'm not going to call them lazy, but they would rather not edit and just get straight out of camera. And then in that case, okay, there is going to be differences in the color science.
I love Fujifilm simulations because they're super fun to shoot through. I'd like to see like that, almost that pre-edit, but then I rarely ever post them. I still go and take the raws and I put my own vision onto it basically.
Right.
Like back in the day when we were shooting film, it's like you would go to specific stocks, like Kodak Portra had neutral color, vivid color, or vibrant, whatever the abbreviation was on it. There was different color looks in those film stocks. And now Kodak pretty much just offers you one Portra because they know it's going to be scanned and edited anyways. And you could tweak it even when you're scanning it. With all of that, again, like I feel like the bodies, like I feel like Sony and some of the other like Canon, they need to come out with like some retro vintage type bodies. And it's not about just being like a hipster, like, oh, it looks cool. It's like, it makes you shoot differently.
Right.
Like the way I shoot the Nikon ZF is way different than the way that I shoot the M11, and it affects the way my work.
Guys, something exciting just happened. Audio.com just added over 150,000 new sound effects to the library. You can get the greatest footage ever, but without good sound design, your video edits aren't hitting all the human senses. This is why having a solid sound effect library is so important. So I'll leave a link down below and a discount code if you want to get access to Audio.com's over 300,000 sound effect library. And below that, I'll have another link to a video where I show all my tricks and tips to sound design.
It affects it more than an edit will. It affects it more than a preset will. Affect it more than color science will. Like the body now, I feel is the biggest difference in all of these. What camera brands do you want to see do something, and like what would you want to see from like what we currently have maybe be done differently, if anything at all?
Well, Canon, out of anyone, could probably pull off tons of different like vintage looks. They could go rangefinder. They could go, more like the ZF style, because they have done those cameras in the past. Where Sony would have to pull from like Minolta's kind of vibes. That it wouldn't really be truly Sony. I think everything that's in the ZF is kind of perfect, other than not having like a higher res sensor, like your M11, what's that, 60 megapixels?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it's the same sensor as the Sony A7R5.
Right. So if Nikon made like a high res version of that and allowed you to
like
put
their Z8 sensor.
Yeah, like the stack sensor would be really cool. I mean, it's maybe way overkill for that camera.
Definitely.
It would crank the price way up. But you would then have a pro, like a really pro body in like this like retro film style thing that could compete with like Leica, or Leica's the only one making high-end vintage looking camera. I guess Hasselblad has that, but that's medium format.
Also high-end though.
The Canon could easily pull off like so many, like they could have an entire, like they could go Fuji, they could go.
Yeah, my favorite film camera is a Canon. I'm gonna watch. Let me grab it real quick.
I can't remember the model that they have that's a rangefinder, but it's like a smaller body.
So here's all my film cameras. Okay. So obviously everybody knows the Canon A1 and AE1.
Right.
Like, this is like kind of the GOAT. Yeah, it is kind of like the GOAT film. Like anybody could pick this up. I have some brassing on mine. But this is the Canon QL17. This is what kind of killed Fuji cameras a little bit for me, like digital Fuji cameras, because when I started to shoot with this,
that's the camera I'm thinking of. That's the camera I'm thinking of.
This thing is amazing. So when I started to shoot with this, I was getting that rangefinder look to where when you're working with models, they react differently when you bring a rangefinder up, and you shoot differently too, because you can't overcomplicate it. So you have to make sure your frame's good. You have to make sure the pose is good. And it's not just the film, it's the actual rangefinder, because it's difficult. I lost that one. It's difficult to focus with them sometimes. So the shots I was getting out of this, and obviously it's film, it's full frame, it's f1.7. I'd put a VND on it even just so I could keep it wide open during daylight.
I think that camera could be sick to bring back. I had to actually Google it quick to see what you had, because that's the rangefinder I was thinking of with the built-in 40 mil. Like imagine that with like a 50 megapixel sensor or something like that in a camera that small too.
Yeah, I mean, if Canon could figure out something in this form factor and make it digital, I think that thing would overtake the market. And obviously people love Canon color science, which again, you can make it look however you want. But yeah, like this again. So yeah, that killed Fuji digital cameras for me, purely because it's like the full frame film look. Just be able to use this and get that. It's just the images I get out of this. And this camera is also the reason I love 40 millimeters so much. Again, the shots I got out of this were like, just blew my mind away. Canon obviously has a lot of history in this and a lot of designs they can simply just take from their own lineup. Going into the media format real quick, I wish Fujifilm would bring something like this back. This is the GS645. I lost the front here in Montana, and I was at a vacuum in the middle of the night trying to get up dog hair, and I vacuumed it up, so that thing's gone. So I need to get this repaired, but it's cool. It would be kind of sick if they figured out a way to do a modern version of this.
Trapdoor. I don't know what it's called. I've never even seen that camera in my life. It's like old school, but like even older.
It shoots vertically. So when you look through the viewfinder, that 645 frame is vertical. So this thing's like insanely cool for Instagram type stuff when you're posting vertical. But yeah, it would be sick if Fujifilm did something like this. I know everybody would have a hissy fit if the sensor was vertical. So maybe not do that part, but like this form factor, this body type, this is super plasticky. This doesn't feel like super high quality, honestly.
It has a leaf shutter too, which is nice if you're gonna use flash. I could play devil's advocate too and say that I don't think the body is similar to film stocks. I think that I would consider presets more the stocks, because if we go back to the time these cameras are coming out, the 70s and whatever, you were picking a camera for, you know, the same reason why you'd pick a camera now, like ergonomics and, you know, some of the features and stuff like that. You're still going to choose a film stock to throw in that camera. But in terms of like unique things that these cameras are, like these camera brands are giving us, like I still think that like having the ability to do custom presets in camera is pretty sick. Like Fuji is really I guess Lumix has the option to also add LUTs over top your JPEGs now, which is pretty good too.
Yeah, the S9 be able to do your own custom LUTs. I feel like every camera brand should be doing that now as well. Like if a camera brand's not offering LUTs for stills mode or some kind of film sims, they're like missing out.
I'm surprised that it's taken this long, like for anyone to do it other than Fuji, because Fuji's been doing it since, well, I have an X100 original from 2011 and it had the option of film simulations and you could do a little bit of adjustment. Not like you can do now where you can do a whole recipe, but at least you had different, like I think there was like 4 different film stocks or whatever they had in the original X100, but no one else has really done it. Like, and they could have. Them
not having a hot shoe or a viewfinder makes me leave this behind a lot when it comes to photography. Because it's like, well, I rather use my, I'll say the M11 is a way different price bracket.
Or if there's going to be no hot shoe, put a pop-up flash in it.
Yeah, like some sort of built-in flash.
You know that market would love a pop-up flash.
I wish these two cameras could be combined. Like if we get the build quality and the viewfinder of the Fuji X106, but with the Lumix full frame sensor and LUT support, like that would be possibly the closest thing to a perfection of a, you know, that type of camera there. So
and like a 40 mil 2.8 or something.
One last thing, I think Fujifilm fucking needs to recreate something like this. Like please, or Hasselblad. Hasselblad should make something like this. So if we get those cameras out, I will be adapting my 2 lenses for this system onto it.
It's a very, very niche camera, but I think there's room for it. I think there's room for like unique stuff because look at back at the time when that was made, like there was hundreds of cameras and then they come out with that and it's like something that's super niche, but super unique, a different, you know, completely different look compared to what they were getting before. Right. And I think that there's probably room. I know these cameras are coming with X-Pan crop or whatever, but the sensor's not an X-Pan sensor.
Yeah, and I don't think anybody would ever make that sensor because I mean, majority of these cameras are just using Sony sensors,
right?
And I don't imagine Sony caring to make one of those because you know they're going more for, you know, the best of the best, not the most creative. So Fujifilm's the only people that might do it, but even then, their medium format's not still going to cover the true X-Pan width of that sensor. So I don't think it's ever going to happen. I think it's a pipe dream, but I think someone will make some sort. Like if they just made a body like this with a viewfinder that was only, I mean, this thing does shoot regular 35 millimeter too. This button back here, you could go from panoramic to standard 35 millimeter and it changes your film counter and everything.
Does it crop in when it does that?
It doesn't crop in. No, it literally, it cuts down. Here, I can show you right here.
Is it using 235 frames?
Yeah. So you see, that's the full X-Pan crop.
Right.
But if I go and change this dial, you see it closes down. Yep. And now it's just a standard full frame 35 millimeter crop. So again, that's X-Pan. I don't know if you can see it there. And then
I can
there
see
it goes.
Yeah.
So
cool. I didn't know you could do that.
So all these cameras around me, depending on what my vision is that I want to deliver for that shoot, I pick up a specific camera for that. Not because of the image quality, because they're all good when it comes to image quality and I can edit all of them to look like my work. So like the M11 I pick up now because a bunch of my favorite photographers, they shoot on like rangefinder film cameras, even for fashion work. And for a decade now, I've been trying to get that look and I've never been able to get it. But then when I got like an MP and an M6 and I was shooting on film, I was like, oh, that's the look. And so that's why I went and dove in and got the M11 because now digitally I can get that vibe. And I was never able to get that. And it was purely because of the body, the camera body. So that was the whole point of all this. Yeah. I don't
And
know.
the,
You
and
got
the
anything
lens
else you want to say
too.
on it?
Like a lot of the
Yeah.
choices comes down to your lens choice too, right? So whether it's a built-in lens or vintage prime,
The
or,
character
whatever.
and all
like,
that. Yeah.
I think that also plays a big role in these more modern cameras too, because Sony specifically is just cranking out the most clinically sharp, perfect lens, which is fine. It's nice to start from that if you need that. Like there's lots of client jobs where you need that, where they want the sharpest, crispiest looking image. And I've done a lot of like commercial stuff where I need that. But I'm starting to dirty the frame up. I'm starting to add grain back into my shots. I'm starting to lift shadows so they're, less crispy and contrasty. I mean, I think we all kind of go through phases. The work will always kind of look the same, but like with slight modifications. It's like music. Like I've been in bands and like I watch other bands and see them go from like this specific style of music, and then they're they start to change because they have, they're starting to feel different vibes. They're liking different things. And I think that like, that's just art, right? That's just how it's always going to be.
If you go on Spotify and you look up my name, you might find some music. It's really bad. And I made it like 7 years ago now, just in my room by myself. Within a month, I put out a little EP. And even then I would use tape emulation, and I would add noise, and I would add a vacuum
tube compressor.
The analog. The analog tube compressors to kind of distort my voice a little bit. And so even in my music, I like doing that. So I'm going to link up with Chris Brockhurst. And we're going to talk about the lens end of things too, because that is important. I feel like as AI starts killing jobs out and the barrier to enter photography continues to be lowered, which is cool. Everybody can shoot. I think, coming here soon, people are going to realize like, oh, there's not much more money to pursuing all this. Like jobs are becoming fewer, and, only the cream of the crop are going to be getting those jobs most likely. And everybody else that's just is involved in the commerce end on photography, it's going to be slim pickings. So I think when that happens, the joy and the love and the passion and the hobby of photography is going to rise up again. And so with that, I feel like people are going to stop chasing quality, because the quality is purely just to, shoot the best quality that you can get. But at the end of the day, that's not what tells the story. That's not what makes an image beautiful. That's not what, when you look at an image and you get struck with like empathy and gratitude or sadness, whatever it is, the quality of the lens and the sensor or whatever it is isn't what it's doing. That's what you're capturing in there. So personally, I like the process and the journey to it and hunting down the stories.
Yeah, it's like that with music equipment too. You can tell the difference between a cheap guitar and an expensive guitar. I think that like I think the other thing is too, we're at a place now where we've used so many cameras from so many brands, and it's kind of exciting when it's something completely different, like a completely different shooting experience, how it feels in the hand. Like you said, it changes the way you shoot too. And I think that like when it comes down to it, if you can find a camera that gets you excited to shoot, maybe it costs 10 grand. I don't know. Save up for it. Yeah. But it's, I don't know. We've got it the best we could ever have it right now. We have so many options.
Yeah. We're beyond spoiled.
And everything's good.
And I'm thankful for it. Cause, imagine when we start, I don't know how long, I've been shooting for like 15 years now. And my first camera was a Canon T2i.
Yeah, mine was my like first pro camera was a T3i, but yeah, that was like back in 2010.
Yes. When I go and look at that work from back then, I still like that work way more. You could tell I cared more about how I shot because, I didn't have the latest and greatest, and we didn't have these computers in our hands. Back then, you got to work for it a little bit more. So you got to care more to get the shot. And when people are spoiled, they go back into, all of a sudden they start getting back into vinyls, and they start like getting more expensive guitars because they have more of the vintage like charm to it when like humans made the instruments kind of thing, where they were handmade and all that. So I guess that's just a part of the human condition of like, don't give it to us too easy.
Yeah. The soul is missing out of modern stuff.
Yes.
And I think that we're all kind of striving to get back Yeah, we're all trying to strive to get back to that, I think, especially like if it's more so for your hobby than it is for work, because for work, we have the best cameras ever, but they're not inspiring to shoot with, at least to me.
Same. Yeah. So I don't know, anybody in the comments, if you get inspired by all these latest and greatest cameras, Sony A7R5, Canon R5 II, like the Nikon Z8, whatever it is, whatever camera, like, you know, that's like the best of the best right now. If it inspires you in the comments, tell us why it inspires you. Because maybe, I mean, I think Lee and I are definitely jaded just because we've been shooting for so long.
Yeah, I think, I guess the takeaway from this is just find what inspires you. And if that's the newest Canon R5 II, then that's cool. Did you give a thumbs down when you said Canon R5 II?
Huh?
I feel like I saw that if you roll the tape back.
Huh? No. What? What?
I don't know.
Canon,
I didn't see it.
The only way Canon would ever get me to use a camera again is if they came out with something like this. Right. I will buy it with my own money. I will review it and I will show all the love to it. Canon, come on. Sony and Canon, you guys are getting left in the dust here. Get it together. Want to say bye?
Yeah.
Come here.
Oh.
Look at that fatty girl. Oh, yes. Oh, yes. Lee's got kitties when he eats kitties.
Yeah, he's actually sleeping on the couch behind me here.
Oh, he's blending in. He's like camouflaged.
Yeah, I don't like him on this couch because he gets fur all over it, so I usually keep him out of the...
Dude, I'm gonna stop filming here.
Yeah, I'll cut mine too.